Do you remember when game developers used to take risks and try to be adventurous and unique with their games while at the same time making it fun? Yeah, I remember that too. Matter of fact, it wasn't that long ago. But unfortunately, we live in an era in gaming where the only thing that matters is whatever the fudge those shareholders say. Like that all that matters. Recently, Microsoft, one of the biggest, if not the biggest company in the world, with like $100 billion in value, decided to shut down a lot of studios. Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks are the most stand out of this list of game developers that Microsoft decided to just shoot at the back of the head for no reason at all. Because most of their games, well, honestly, not most, because Redfall was a disaster. But let's talk about Tango. Tango was really unique. Like the Evil Within, yeah, it wasn't the most unique game in the world, considering there's a lot of horror games. But you've got Ghostwire Tokyo. The premise was unique. I loved it actually. I enjoyed my time with the game, which is weird to say because I remember watching reviews where people were just hating on it and saying that it was mediocre, which at points it was, but still, it was fun. And the other game was Hi-Fi Rush, probably the most successful Xbox game recently, and one of the most unique games ever. I had a blast playing it. It was really fun actually, and it was really successful. But for some reason, Microsoft decided to just shut down the studio. And the fucking painful thing about this is that Tim Booty Cheeks, or whatever the fuck his name is, came in the next day after shutting down the studio and said, "We need more unique games like Hi-Fi Rush." My brother, you just shut down the studio. There were rumors that the developers were making a sequel, and you decided no, we won't have it. It will take so long. Motherfucker, all games take so long. God damn, how the fuck do you consider yourself in the upper echelon of the gaming world and don't know shit about it? The simplest of games will take a lot of time. God damn, I'm getting angry and starting to fluster because this is the dumbest shit I've heard. Anyway, I went on a long tangent, just shitting on Microsoft, rightfully so, and if you still decide to buy Xbox, maybe you should reconsider. Like, really, really reconsider, because at this point, it's just a brick. It's useless. Anyway, the topic of this video is another studio that luckily is still with us, and luckily wasn't acquired by a major company like Microsoft or Sony, and I hope to God every day that it doesn't, and that they stay, well, what's the word? They are not really an indie developer, but you know what I mean. Anyway, this developer is From Software. Since Demon's Souls, or even before that, they were one of the most unique developers in the industry. Like, you've got Kingsfield, you've got Demon's Souls, and you've got Armored Core. Then, in the later years, you got Sekiro. Like, every game they make is unique in its own way, which is why people love them, which is why people enjoy them. And you've got Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and the topic of this video, Bloodborne. While Bloodborne is considered a Souls game, it is by far the most unique Souls game out there. I could go on and on and on for hours about how unique it is, but that will take, like I said, hours, and I don't want that. I'm just gonna talk about one very unique feature that only appeared in Bloodborne, and I don't think will appear again. Hopefully it will, but I don't think it will. And that is the Chalice Dungeons. Before I get into it, I will acknowledge that Sony kinda did good with Bloodborne. Yeah, they didn't give us a next gen upgrade, and yeah, they didn't put it on PC, and yeah, we didn't get a sequel for some fucked up reason that we still don't know, which is in the theme of Bloodborne, basically, to just know jack shit about whatever the fuck happens. But still, they did good by not doing anything and keeping their greasy hands to themselves. Because if they were involved in the development of Bloodborne, believe me, the game will be very different. It will just be a regular Sony slop. You know, cinematics and realistic graphics and all of that shit. But thankfully, I mean, they didn't. And hopefully, when we get Bloodborne 2, they won't get involved. Except for just giving From Software money to do whatever they want. Anyway, before I get into another tangent, let's just dive into the topic of the video. Let's get into it. So, in case you never played Bloodborne, or maybe you forgot what the Chalice Dungeons are, I'm gonna give you a quick summary. Basically, the Chalice Dungeons are the endgame mode of Bloodborne. There are 25 Chalice Dungeons that you can collect. Yeah, you heard me right. 25. I was shocked. I played basically all the Chalice Dungeons, but I am still shocked that there are 25 that you can collect. Anyway, they vary in difficulty and layouts and enemies, etc. Like, there's some variety in them. And you can sink hundreds of hours just exploring the dungeons. I probably clocked in like, I don't know, 300, 400 hours just exploring. And I know that I said there are 25 Chalice Dungeons, but honestly, at this point in the game's life cycle, some of them you don't really need to get. And some of them you won't even play twice, let alone explore a lot. The Chalice Dungeons are split into 3 types. Not 3, I'm not sure how to explain it. Anyway, there are 3 types of Chalice Dungeons. There are the basic ones, which are fixed and they can't be modified or they can't be procedurally generated. And then there's the root Chalice Dungeons, and these are randomly generated, like you will find some weird stuff in there. And then there is the Sinister Chalice Dungeons, which are the ones that I mean when I say you don't really need to collect. Because the Sinister Chalice Dungeons are like, they are centered around invasions and maybe co-op. But like I said, the online of Bloodborne is basically dead at this point. You will find few co-op sessions here and there, but they are pretty rare. And the invasion scene is the most dead, obviously. Now, you may wonder why I said there are 25, but I only listed how to get 3 of them. Well, because for the rest of them, you get them through playing the dungeons. The central Thumera Chalice, the lower Thumera Chalice, the Hunter Tombs, and you've got Thumera Ihil, which is probably the most important of them all. All of these, you get them by just exploring the dungeons. If you explore all of the fixed dungeons, you will get everything, basically. Oh, and I forgot the Cursed Chalice. You also get it by exploring the dungeon. Basically, in the main game, you only get 3 dungeons, the Thumeru, the Loran, and Iz. The rest, you just explore the dungeons. And you may notice that I said central and lower, or stuff like that. Well, there are levels to the dungeons. Level 1 is the easiest, and you go up until you reach level 5. And the more you progress, the harder the dungeon becomes. And you've got other modifications that you can do to the root chalices. For example, like I said, the root chalices are the generated ones, the procedurally generated dungeons. And you can modify them. You can make them cursed, defiled, fetid, or whatever that word is called, or you can just combine the three and have a really hard dungeon, but with very high rewards, which is honestly my most preferred way of playing the dungeons. Because once you explore all the dungeons and play a lot of them, you will get so overpowered. You will get blood gems, the blood echoes drop there like I don't know what it's like. One simple enemy in the higher level dungeons will give you like 20,000 echoes or something like that. Basically, you will also level up like crazy. So yeah, once you explore all of them, you will have to basically play the cursed, fetid, rotted, etc. level 5 dungeons. This is where the fun is and where the challenge is, and for the most part where the good rewards are. With that being said, I'm just gonna tell you on how to get the 3 main chalice dungeons. The first one is the Thumerian Chalice dungeon, which you can get by heading to Old Yharnam and killing the blood-starved beast. And I'm just gonna show you how I was kicking this motherfucker's ass, because when I first played the game years ago, this guy took me like half a day to kill, or even a whole day, I forgot, but he kicked my ass to hell and back. Anyway, the second chalice dungeon that you can get is the Ailing Loran, and you can get it by going to the Nightmare Frontier and killing Amygdala, which is a moderately hard boss. Just focus on the head and he will die easily. Don't attack the legs, you won't deal any damage there. The third chalice dungeon is that is what it's called. It's a weird name, but I love it. Anyway, this can be a little weird to get because it is kinda hidden. You have to go to the upper cathedral ward, which is already a chore to get to. Then you have to kill the celestial emissary. After you kill them, there will be this big ass suspicious looking window. You can attack it or roll into it and it will break. Honestly, it looks like the most attackable thing in the game. Anyway, after you break it, just head forward and you will find an elevator that takes you down to Ebritas or Ebriatis, which is probably the hardest one you will get because, good god, she deals a lot of damage. She deals a fuck ton. If you get hit with her that laser beam attack, you'll probably get one shot. So yeah, after you kill her, you will get the Is Chalice. And I forgot to mention this, but different dungeon types will have different enemies. For example, Loran will have the beasts, like the werewolves, the beast patients or whatever they are called, what's it called? That other goat-like beast, I forgot what it was called, the blood-starved beast or something. And Is, on the other hand, will have a lot of aliens, like the mushroom dudes, or the celestial emissary, or the brain suckers, etc. And sometimes an enemy will be available in a lot of dungeons, but depending on the dungeon will have different elements. This is pretty rare actually. I think I can think only of one of them, and it's this motherfucker who became the bane of my existence. Like, if you get close to him and you don't attack him immediately, he will one-shot you. There's no chance of surviving unless you have a lot of health. I heard a lot of theories like him summoning the fireballs inside your body, which makes it so that it deals multiple hits of damage, but I'm not sure about it. Anyway, if you fight him in Is, he will summon arcane balls. If you fight him in another dungeon, he will summon fireballs. And I also forgot to mention this, but different dungeons will also have different themes or styles to them. Like Loran will have dust stuff, and you will get lightning inside the dungeon. It will not attack you, it's just there for aesthetic. And in Is, it looks beautiful with a lot of cosmos stuff in there and stars, etc. It's really beautiful and I love it. In terms of looks, Is my favorite. And the Thumeru is just, your regular dungeon. So I think it's obvious that I'm a big fan of the dungeons. But why is that? Why do I love them so much? Well, the first and pretty obvious reason is the dungeons are just another reason to play Bloodborne endlessly. It's an endless mode of Bloodborne, which is perfect. Like, I love Bloodborne. I don't really need a reason to play it a lot, but there it is, a reason for me to play Bloodborne. But maybe that's not a convincing reason. Maybe you are looking for something else. Well, you've got cool shit in there. For example, exclusive bosses that only appear in the dungeons. For example, you've got the undead giants. And you've got those fat people, I think they are called dungeon watchers. I forgot. Labyrinth watchers, or something like that. You've got the infamous, the legendary watchdog of the old lords, which I think prevented a lot of people from getting the platinum trophy. You've got the bloodletting beast and the headless virgin. You've got the Thumerian descendant and elder. One of them is really hard. I'm not gonna tell you which one, but if you are playing in the advanced levels, one of them will kick your ass so much. And you've got the very, very special boss that you will see in the main game, but you cannot fight there. I'm of course talking about Queen Yharnam. And there are others that I forgot to mention probably. You also have exclusive enemies that only appear in the Chalice dungeons. For example, you've got this Meat Canyon Casio looking motherfucker that keeps rolling around and will kick your ass a lot. Honestly, I'm surprised that they didn't reuse him as a boss, because he is the hardest enemy in the game, period. You also have the scariest enemy in the game, the Thumerian Sage or the Labyrinth Sage. My god, the most terrifying thing in the game is hearing this guy scream in the background. Just turn around and find him bum rushing you and getting to you instantly. He is fast, he does a shit ton of damage, and he is scary. You also have the witches that keep summoning enemies and spiders, which is a cool concept for the Chalice dungeon. Like, you have to kill her in order for her summons to disappear. And other enemies that I'm not gonna mention because I'll stay here forever. You also have extremely rare enemies. For example, the most infamous one is the Labyrinth Mole. I played the dungeons for hundreds of hours, and I never found one on my own. I had to use a Chalice glyph. We'll come to those later, but for now, let's focus on the enemies. You also have the puppets that Mikolash uses, and the Shadows of Yharnam, and other enemies. Yeah, I know that both of these can be found in the OG game, but if you find them in the Chalice dungeons, consider yourself extremely lucky because, like I said, these are extremely rare. You also have the Wandering Bosses, which are bosses that appear outside of the boss room. I'm not talking about enemies that get used as bosses, like the fucking, what's it called? The Undead Giant and the Brain Sucker. No, I'm talking about genuine bosses that appear in the dungeon area that isn't the boss room. For example, you've got the Chameleon Descendant, which is the only wandering boss I've managed to find. I heard that you can find the Elder and the Abhorrent Beast. I'm not sure if you can find any other bosses outside of these three, but yeah, these are also extremely rare. You also have traps in the Chalice dungeons, which the OG game was heavily lacking in. Like, I don't really remember any contraptions or traps in the OG game, except maybe the fireball and the dogs in the forest or woods or whatever it's called. But in the dungeons, you've got gigantic guillotines, enemies that will shoot you with fucking cannons and one-shot you if you are in a cursed dungeon. And you've got the flame spitters, which can also one-shot you because holy shit, a single arrow of these does a lot of damage. You also have this portal thing, which sometimes will take you to an enemy den, sometimes will kinda lead you to a treasure. And there are other things like this bell, which if you find, you can ring it, but the consequence will be that a lot of enemies will gather around you from the dungeon and will basically gank the shit out of you. There's also giant swinging axes like the ones in Sin's Fortress, and I think there are others that I didn't mention. Oh, and I forgot one very important trap, which isn't really a trap, but it's these smoke blazers or braziers or however you say them. These things are annoying as shit. If you see them, don't attack them. Just roll on them and they will break. And if there's anything in there, by rolling you will avoid it. Because sometimes enemies will appear from there, or you may just step on a plate that will activate a trap that will kill you. At this point, you must be saying, damn, all of this trouble, like the traps, the terrifying enemies, the hard bosses, the rewards must be worth it, otherwise I'm not gonna play it. And I'm happy to tell you that the rewards are very worth it. Very, very worth the trouble. Let's start with the only reward that I can get at this point, because I pretty much got everything else in the dungeons, and that is the Blood Echoes. If you play the Chalice dungeons, you will get a shit ton of Blood Echoes. And I'm not talking about playing the Cum Chalice, which to this day I'm not sure if it's an intentional name or just a happy accident. No, I'm talking about just playing the higher level dungeons. For example, a level 5 is Chalice with curse, rotted, fitted offerings to it. By playing that, even without equipping the Moon Rune or any other rune that increases your Blood Echoes, you will get a lot of Blood Echoes. And here's a pro tip: don't use the Moon Rune. Well, use it if you are not that experienced in the game, but if you have a lot of experience, especially in parrying, use the other rune. I forgot what its name. I'll put it on the screen. This rune will give you increased blood echoes if you kill an enemy with a visceral attack, and it gives you much more runes than the regular moon rune or any other moon rune. And I think I forgot another reward that I can still get, but I will save it until the end because it's pretty much anyone would be playing the Chalice dungeons to this day. So let's talk about another reward. And the reward that I'm going to talk about next is the only one that is pretty much exclusive to the dungeon. Like, you cannot get anything similar to it in the OG game. And that is the Beast Claw weapon. The Beast Claw is just this very cool weapon that is, well, from its name, is a Beast Claw, which is, I think, one of two claw weapons or fist weapons in Bloodborne, but I'm not sure, or maybe three. Yeah, there are three fist weapons in the game. One is the brick weapon that you can get in the DLC. The other is Parasite of Chaos, which you also get in the DLC. And the Beast Claw, which you only get in the dungeons. It's a very cool weapon, and you definitely should play with it because it has a unique feature, which is raising your beasthood meter if you transform it. I'm not gonna talk a lot about it because, yeah, you should get it for yourself and try it out because, like I said, it's one of the coolest weapons, which is not saying a lot because all the weapons in Bloodborne are very, very cool, except the brick weapon, which sucks. And while we are speaking of the weapons in the dungeons, there are other unique weapons that you can only get in the Chalice dungeons. Not really unique, but different versions of weapons you already have. For example, if you love the Hunter's Axe, you can get the Uncanny Axe and the Lost Axe in the Chalice dungeons. And you might be wondering, what's the difference between the regular axe, the Uncanny, and the Lost? The only difference really is the gem slots. For example, the regular axe will have maybe a star, a triangle, or 2 stars, 1 triangle, or 2 circles, etc. But the Uncanny will have another gem slots. For example, it will have all triangles, or maybe it will have crescent, triangle, and a star at the same time. The Lost will have different ones. You get what I mean. And this is such a cool idea because it allows a lot of build diversity. For example, maybe you love the Hunter's Axe and you want it to be elemental. The elemental gems are usually the crescent ones. So you use maybe the Uncanny if it had crescent slots, and now you have an elemental Hunter's Axe. And when I say elemental, it's really 2 elements like lightning and maybe fire, no other element really. So yeah, it's really cool. Other rewards that are exclusive to the Chalice dungeons are the max level Carol runes. Now, you might be saying that you can get them in the OG game, which is right for the most part, but most runes will have the max level only available in the Chalice dungeons. For example, the Communion rune, you can get up to level 4 in the OG game, but you can only get level 5 in the Chalice dungeons. Some runes don't really have any appearance in the Chalice dungeons. For example, the very popular Moon rune have only 3 levels, and you can get all 3 in the OG game. Another example is the Covenant runes, like Radiance or the Beast one that you can get from Lawrence. These are exclusive to the OG game and the DLC. But yeah, like I said, most runes have their maximum level in the Chalice dungeon. And not just in the Chalice dungeons, no, they must be the loot Chalice dungeons. So you will have a shit time trying to find them. There are glyphs for them out there, but I'm not sure if they are still functional. Okay, maybe all of these rewards are not worth it in your opinion. Well, this reward is worth it for everyone, and that is Blood Rocks. In the OG game, you only get one per playthrough. For example, you may play the game for the first time, you get just one Unos Blood Rock, which is always something that baffled me, to be honest. Like, every other game gave you a way to get more than one. Or maybe you can farm them or something. But in Bloodborne, no, you only get one per playthrough. Maybe you lacked two weapons. Well, tough luck, because you only can upgrade one of them to the maximum level. Yeah, you can get another one in the DLC, but maybe you don't have the DLC or something, I don't know. And yeah, the toughest part about the Blood Rock in the dungeon is it's pretty much randomized. Yay! Our favorite part of any game. You are in Jesus. Yeah, like I said, it's pretty much randomized. So, for the most part, you'll get it, but maybe you are one unlucky son of a bitch, and you probably won't get it. Like the Carol runes and the weapons, there are glyphs to get the Blood Rocks, but like I said, maybe they are not functional anymore. So yeah, you will have to play the higher level dungeons. Once again, I keep repeating it. The lower levels are not worth it for the most part. Like, just don't bother with them. If you are a pro gamer like me, and you played the dungeons extensively, then you probably got all of the rewards that I mentioned. Like the runes, the weapons, the Blood Rocks. So what do you get when you get all of these? When you collect them and you can't get them anymore? Well, if they are in a chest, which all of them are for the most part, you will get Great One's Wisdom, which is basically a way for you to get more insight. More insight equals not having to farm or play the game again to get the Blood Rock, because you can buy it from the insight shop for 60 insights, and you can also use it to buy materials to continue playing the dungeons. For example, the Bastard of Loran costs 7 insights, and it's a very rare item. Even in the higher level dungeons, you are not guaranteed to get it all the time. So yeah, it's a nice way to just keep playing. Now, you may be wondering, why would I keep playing the Chalice dungeons if I already collected all the unique rewards? Well, there are 3 reasons. The first reason, it's Bloodborne. I don't really need a logical explanation on why I want to play it. The second reason is the blood echoes. And the third reason, if you remember early on, I said that there is a reward that is the reason why most people play the Chalice dungeons. And that is the higher level, strong as fuck blood gems. Now, I could go on and on and on about the blood gems, but I want. Because another YouTuber called Dang It Jim, or just Jim, has already made a video about the blood gyms. Damn, there's a lot of gyms in this segment. Anyway, his video is excellent. If you want to know everything about the blood gyms, the chalice dungeons, the best way to get them, you should watch his video after you finish mine, you son of a gun. Anyway, basically, the blood gyms are accessories, or if you played Monster Hunter, they are like the decorations. They will give you buffs, mainly attack buffs. If you play the cursed chalice dungeons, or the really high dungeons, you will get cursed gems, which are strong as fuck, but like the name suggests, they are cursed. The curses you get on these gems can vary. Some of them are really bad. For example, one of them will basically drain your health. Another one will make it so that your weapon breaks faster. And there are the weaker ones. Not weak in terms of their power, but in terms of the curse. Like one of them will just increase the stamina. And who gives a fuck about stamina? And depending on what build you want, you may want to try playing different types of dungeons. For example, like I said, if you wanted to have an elemental build, you will need the Crescent gyms. And in order to get them, you will have to play the Roland Chalice. Or if you want the Arcane gyms, the good ones are located in Is Chalice, and so on and so forth. Like I said, you should watch Jim's video, it's excellent and he will tell you everything. But before you do that, I'm gonna tell you that if you want to build a blood tinge build, well, my brother, you are in for a very bad time. Like, good God. I intended to have a blood tinge build with the what's it called? The Chikage, the other one, the Blood Litter, the one weapon that Maria uses. I forgot what it's called. The Rakuyu, I think, or something like that. And good lord, you will have a shit time, because I did. Those gyms are stupid rare. Like, I'm not gonna talk about it because I could go on another tangent, but you could ask anyone who attempted to have a really strong blood tinge build, and you will see the 1,000-yard stare when they all start to talk about them, because it's traumatizing. You may have heard me say strange words throughout this video, like glyphs, procedurally generated, loot dungeons, and women. And you may wonder, what do I mean by that? Well, like I said, I probably said this at the beginning of the video, loot dungeons are the procedurally generated ones. And this means that From Software didn't design them by hand, like they didn't really put the time and effort in them. They are randomly generated, and you will get a lot of weird stuff here, like geometry issues. I once got a ladder in the middle of nowhere. Like, you will climb it thinking that it would lead you to some hidden treasure or something, and you will just drop and that's it. Or like this glitch thing. It's an entrance. I thought it's a dimensional one, but no, it's just geometry issues. And like I said, loot chalice dungeons are where the good shit is. So if you are playing either for exploration, or for fun, or to get the rewards, you will play for the most part in the higher level loot chalice dungeons. Okay, so that explains the root chalices, and the procedurally generated stuff. But what does glyph means? Well, glyph is basically another word for code. Basically, it's a way for players to share their dungeons around. For example, let's say that you want the Lost Chicago, and you can't for the life of you get any dungeon that has this weapon. So what do? Basically, my dear friend, you will have to go online and look for a glyph of a dungeon where this weapon that you seek will be available. A lot of times the glyph will be expired because the dungeon owner has removed it or hasn't played for too long, because apparently the dungeons will get removed from the server after like 2 weeks or a month or something like that. So you will have to ask and dig it up to find it. And by the way, there's a community on Reddit dedicated for chalice dungeons. So for the most part, your best chance to get a glyph of a dungeon you want is to go there and ask for it. Glyphs are also a way for players to share around the legendary edited chalice dungeons. Now, 99% of players cannot edit the chalice dungeons, so let's not get your hopes up. But some people manage to do so. For example, the Come Chalice dungeon, I believe it's an edited chalice dungeon. And you've got other chalices that Zuli the Witch has made, and these are the coolest ones. Like, I hope to God that these never get lost, and that someone keeps them around in another character or something. Because Zuli's chalice dungeon has some deleted bosses that you can only play against in this chalice dungeon. For example, you've got a version of the Moon Presence that's just flopping around and deals a shit ton of damage. You also have another version of another beast boss. I think it was called the Beast Lord or the Beast Blood Lord or something like that. And you've got another dungeon that Zuli edited, which has some deleted enemies. One of them looks like Totoro from the Ghibli movies. So yeah, if you want to experience deleted content or just wacky stuff, the edited chalice dungeons are a cool way to do it. So yeah, with that, I think I'm done with talking about the things that are in the game and not just me yapping about my wishful thoughts. In conclusion, the chalice dungeons are pretty cool. They have a lot of cool stuff. Hell, they even tie the story of the main game. Like, for example, Queen Yharnam and the Headless Bloodletting Beast. The Headless Bloodletting Beast has ties to Lawrence, if you don't know, and other cool stuff that tie the dungeons and the OG game together. But there is no specific story for the chalice dungeons, which is something that I wish to see. So yeah, like I said, I'm done with talking about the chalice dungeons themselves. So if you don't want to continue watching at this point, then just leave a like and a comment and subscribe, etc, etc. Now I'm just gonna yap about my wishes for the chalice dungeons in Bloodborne 2, if that ever happens. Like, good lord. Next year is probably the 10th anniversary of Bloodborne, so who knows, maybe we'll get another game or something. Anyway, my first wish for the chalice dungeon, if they come back, is the ability to just edit the chalice as we want, without needing to use external software and do a lot of voodoo stuff. Like, yeah, just give us the option to edit them. Like, I don't know, a lot of games nowadays have the ability to edit maps, and with processing power of the PS5, I think this will be possible. I'm not a programmer, but I think it will be possible. Like, imagine the amount of creativity that we will see in Bloodborne if From Software allowed all the players to just edit their dungeons as they wish. For example, someone may make a dungeon where there is no enemies except the bosses. The rest of the dungeon is just full of traps and you have to puzzle your way through them. Or maybe a dungeon where every enemy is just this rolling fat guy. Or maybe a dungeon with a specific theme to it. For example, a hunter's dungeon, where all the enemies you fight, even the bosses, are just humanoids. And make it so that we can export enemies from the main game and put them in the dungeon. That will be a lot of fun. One of my main gripes with the dungeons is the fact that we can't really fight the bosses of the OG game in the dungeon. So if you want to fight Gilman, you will have to play the game all over again just to fight him. And while it's Bloodborne, so it's going to be fun, it's going to take some time and you may not want to do it. But if you had a dungeon where you can fight him whenever you want, this will be great and a lot of fun, and make it so that people play the game more. Like, you see what people do with Mario Maker and other games where you can edit your stuff. From Software will obviously put some limitations to it. For example, maybe make it so that you can't manipulate the drops or the treasures. Like, I know that some people will try to exploit it and make it so a dungeon will have only blood rocks in the chests, which is very cool from a player's perspective, but from the developer's perspective it will be annoying. Another one of my wishes is to have maybe a story to the dungeons. I mean, the dungeons in the original Bloodborne ties pretty well with the story, but I don't know, maybe make it so that the dungeons will have a story on their own that also ties to the main game. This is a big ask, so I don't really expect it or even think about it a lot. But something that I think about a lot is to have specific quests in the dungeons. For example, maybe you meet NPCs there that will give you quests of maybe an item or an enemy or something regarding the dungeon, or even an NPC in the OG game. It always bothered me how it seems that no NPC knows about the Chalice dungeons except Gilman, who mentions them once and that's it. He doesn't say anything about them after that. Or maybe make it like Dragon's Dogma. In Bitter Black Isle there are some notice boards where you can pick up quests and do them, and a lot of time these quests are pretty cool actually and give you some lore regarding Bitter Black Isle. It would be cool if the same thing was applied in the Chalice dungeon, because they are pretty much similar. Another basic wish of mine is to have more unique bosses. I mean, there are unique bosses to the Chalice dungeons, but a lot of times you will fight enemies reused as bosses. Like the Keeper of the Old Lords. You can parry the shit out of this guy, and he will not do anything. He's not challenging at all. So more unique bosses is appreciated, and more hard bosses are also appreciated. Like, the only hard bosses we have in the dungeon are the Cursed Watchdog and that's it. The only hard boss in the Chalice dungeon is the Cursed Watchdog, which is just a watchdog, except that you are fighting him in a cursed dungeon, and that's it. He's not even hard on his own. I get that the dungeons are not From Software's main concern, like they have to finish the game first, then look at the dungeons. But still, I wish for more bosses like Maria, Ludwig, the Orphan, Gilman, and bosses like this. Like, for fuck's sake, the Thumerian Descendant is just an R1 spammer. I mean, I love him, but still, he's not that unique. And with that, I'm done yapping about my wishes and about the whole subject as a whole. So, yeah, the Chalice dungeons are cool, and I am so sad that they got a lot of undeserved hate and neglect, and I think more people should give them a chance. Like, at first, I didn't really look at them, but when I did, I got addicted. They were so fun. Even without the rewards, they are pretty fun. So you should give them a chance. And if you don't give them a chance, then you are
plague-ridden rat!
And like I said, what did I say? I forgot. With just a regular PlayStation, you will not be able to edit them. So, oh my god.